Hello, welcome to next episode of Mindset Navigator. I'm Mickey Škoda, and this is the first English speaking episode since my guest is Gavin Flook. Hello, Gavin.
Good afternoon, Mickey. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. Maybe if people don't know exactly what you do, maybe they already see your description that you are a coach and ex-Deloitte partner. What does it mean? What do you do? What's your normal life now? What do you do these days?
Well, I run a portfolio of activities, actually. Part of my life is still somehow connected to Deloitte, where I spent 30 happy, successful, but intensive years. That's where I learned so much. What I do now is take that learning with some additional education to coach some former colleagues. I'm still involved with Deloitte University, for example, and probably professional services is still my field. That's where my coaching clients come from. And I coach individuals and teams. And I'm also involved in a number of charities, which is how we met. And those charities are in a variety of sectors at home and abroad. And maybe we'll go into some more details over the next half hour or so.
Oh yeah, that's the main topic of today, the philanthropy and helping the others. But that's actually the main question. You spent 30 years in, as I imagine, hard business. It must be like hard negotiation with different companies, or maybe could you describe what did you do? How does it look to be a partner in Deloitte to a new listener to our podcast?
Partner is maybe worth defining. It's not a very common term, but that meant I was an owner of the business. So I carried some responsibility, and I carried that responsibility with a sense of legacy or what is to come. So I always was caring for the people that I was working with. We were typically hiring young, bright, often ambitious, professional people from university. We trained them, we gave them a variety of experience. So I saw my role as to bring them up and to help them to grow and to develop. That was what I did in any role that I took. And I undertook several roles. As an auditor, my client work was auditing the financial statements of companies. That sounds rather simple. It was quite complicated with companies listed on various stock exchanges, serious responsibility, some risk as well. But the way in which I interacted with people was always tried to be people-focused, developmental, helpful, generous, but other characteristics were to be skeptical, challenging, curious, and that was part of my toolkit, if you like, to help people to grow and to develop. And finally, working on a particular project, which was Deloitte University, so building something which would do that learning and education and growth on an ongoing basis. And that's why I'm still involved with Deloitte even 4 years after my retirement.
Despite this episode is mostly about helping the others and not just volunteering, but even paying to be able to actually, not just paying to be able to help the others, but paying for the others somehow. I would like to understand better the way how one gets to something like that, to philanthropy, let's call it. Mm-hmm. And maybe for this context, I would like to ask the question, since you are like pretty much on the top, I would say, of the career, officially, like if we call it success or whatever, you were on the top. You were the Deloitte partner, and then you decided to give your service different way, to be a coach. Why? How did this happen? What was the decision about?
I suppose the genesis of it, Mickey, was that one of my roles was specifically for developing talent. And one of the things that we came to was we'd like to have more of a coaching culture in Deloitte. So that took me to coaching education and to be a professional coach, I would say with a small c coach within the organization. And that went with my helping others in terms of developing their careers. And that was really where the seed was sown. And maybe it wasn't seen as philanthropy within the organization, but it was that sort of giving type approach, which I tried to promote and develop in the culture of the organization. So there's no doubt that the organization was client-focused to meet the clients' needs as we served them. There was also an imperative around generating profitable business that enabled us to invest and to attract good people with reasonable compensation packages. But the other part of that triangle was to appeal to the intellect of talent, to be giving their best in the work that they did. And finally, actually, that was put into a purpose statement that we all lived by, which was to make an impact that matters, which gave another, if you like, validation to this idea that we are giving as well as profit-generating business.
If I didn't know you and I looked at your profile, I would say that you are probably lucky enough that you can make your own free decisions, that you can give your service. You already have throughout your life proven your value for. You have something to live for and live from. If I mean like making money and so on. So you decided to give your service by coaching. Do you, from this perspective, since you decided to do some different kind of job or maybe purpose, do you actually see the difference from this overview between profit and non-profit activities?
Clearly, there is a difference in terms of the financial outcomes. But if you look at the substance of almost any business, there is a wider group of stakeholders. And if you look at the stakeholders, then the success of satisfaction or fulfillment for the stakeholders is not always a profit motive. So even in a profitable business, so Deloitte as a business, we have stakeholders, employees, we had suppliers, we had our clients, we had regulators, and increasingly we looked also to the environment. We had a travel impact, so a carbon footprint and so on. So just as our example, but you could go to any other company and see similar stakeholder interests, which are not all measured by profit. And then you go to a non-profit organization, all those same stakeholders are more or less going to exist. Maybe the tension that might be felt between the profit, non-profit activities or imperatives might have a slightly different balance. But again, it's a similar portfolio, a spread of interest. So I could certainly make a strong argument that it's not so different. However, when it comes to the need of a profit-making organization to make money, depending on who the owners are, and the owners have to live from that profit, then clearly that's rather can be seen as a must-have, if you like. Increasingly, the other imperatives are seen as must-haves, but without a fundamentally sustainable, profitable business, that sort of organization can't really succeed. The only other contrast that we might explore that I would have experienced, at least, with the non-profit organizations I'm in, they are mostly volunteer organizations. So it's another nuance, because you can have businesses that are non-profit, but it may be a vocation, but it may also be a full-time career. Most of the organizations that I'm involved in my second career, if I can express it that way, they're based on volunteer input. And then you come to a very different set of dynamics as well, because the volunteers are balancing various commitments.
It's interesting point of view that you described, that there are some stakeholders in the profitable business that need to live from that. And as you said, that there could be like non-profit organizations where also the people live from that, despite not always, but usually they have a little bit less money than on similar position in profitable business. But you described that some profitable businesses, most of them actually, have some part taking care of the social responsibility, CSR usually it's called. And I'm thinking, since every business that I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think every business somehow is like social service, like it at least tries to fulfill some need. And yeah, obviously, like for money, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's everything just for the money, but it's logically like has to be paid somehow. And if it wants to be sustainable, it needs to be paid a little bit more than it needs to cover like future expansion or to make it sustainable. And that to me, from this point of view, seems to be pretty similar as any non-profit, like adult non-profit, I would say, because I remember me starting as working in non-profits and being quite disappointed that it didn't make me a living, you know, that somehow I wanted it to be sustainable, but I wasn't able to ask for money. So somehow it wasn't that easy. But at the same time, I'm thinking that it's quite interesting that some companies make enough money to cover their living and the products that they need to serve, and maybe some budget for innovation, but some other way they are fulfilling their corporate social responsibility, which is quite interesting, or interesting point of view, since the public service and the social responsibility should be, from my point of view, included already in the first product. So why to make I would say like so much money that you need to have another social responsibility project? It's just interesting. Like, why does it have to be like this way divided? Actually,
yeah. Interesting question, and that could be subject to a research paper probably. But my comment on it would be that indeed most businesses or organizations exist to serve some purpose. Maybe don't always use the word purpose, but there's to a consumer need, a public requirement. There is something which they are intended to do, which contributes to a population of consumers or buyers, and that's one of the drivers that would attract leaders, attract investors, attract employees. Would be the core of the brand. And then along the way, there were various other complications around how the business is financed and what the imperatives are. The growing area, corporate social responsibility or purpose, is increasingly used, is something that is maybe being put back onto the organization's agendas because they have forgotten why they are here. You could say
it could happen. Yeah.
So organizations often talk about the different expectations of the young generation today. They are more caring of society, more interested in equality and fairness type issues. So companies, in order to attract and retain that talent, they will change their agenda a little bit, or at least highlight those aspects of their business. Then there are, of course, laws and regulations that come in which try to raise the bar on those sort of standards. So you have a non-profit type reporting. A company exists to serve a need, generate a profit. There's lots of laws around how they report their profitability. And now there are laws and regulations around how they report their carbon footprint and other sort of environmental impact. So that comes in as a necessity for businesses as well. So it's interesting that you draw that contrast between what should be rather natural, that a company or an organization exists to fulfill some kind of a purpose, and that now, and it still, if we're a little bit realistic or even cynical, some organizations are sort of bolting on CSR activities.
Yeah, I mean, like greenwashing and...
Yeah, and you can have and this is a discussion that does take place among stakeholders, is how sincere are organizations about this? Is it something they do to tick a box or to meet a requirement because it is a requirement? Or is it something they really sort of live and breathe? And that is more likely to infect a culture rather than something which is rather directive and imperative. And I think that's something that many organizations are battling with, and maybe some organizations could be seen as shining examples, but even they will come under pressure and at a certain moment may have to sort of make a choice, at least in the way they talk about what they're trying to accomplish.
And I understand that my point of view is obviously quite naive, but I still believe it's a question worth asking, because it's not that that I feel that it's bad to take so much money that you need to make another purpose through putting them somewhere else. That's not the point of view, or not the problem from my point of view. The problem, what I see is actually that there has to be a regulator who already expects that you might not be that sincere or that fair towards the company. So it's expected that you that your service is probably not good enough somehow, and you have to actually pay. Then I understand why some companies are not that sincere for that. Like, that's I'm a little bit against regulations in general, so that's a different discussion. But on this base, I would like to talk on or discuss, or maybe just ask about why would one help the others? Because I understand that from this point of view, we understand each other. I'm a long-term Boy Scout, ex-Scout leader, and I started by establishing non-profits, few of them actually. So my life is, I would say, embedded in non-profit activities, despite after some time I found out I have to do something even for the profit, actually, to make the stuff sustainable. That to make it honestly doesn't mean to do it for free. And so anyway, I believe we understand on the emotional point of view, like, why to do it, why help the others, why share your not just money but energy in any form, I would say, with the others. But that's why I would like to ask you maybe to be more specific about that, because I believe even the listeners like understand. Even here in Czechia, it's quite nicely embedded the will to help the others. I experienced that after tornado, or even after the tsunami in 2004. Czechs sent so many those SMSs for helping at least a little bit. Like, we were actually quite good in comparison to the rest of the Europe. So I see we somehow understand why we do it, but it's very hard to name it. So can you explain, after all these experiences in doing business, and I believe that you didn't do it just only for making money, but like the money helped you do it longer. Why would one help the others? Why do you want to share your time and money or other resources?
Yeah. A very simple and maybe glib answer would be because it's the right thing to do. And the idea that those who have the ability to help others should do so. So that'd be another layer. And that's something that I reflect on now, to say I actually don't have that much to prove, in a sense, because I've 30 years career. Others can judge how successful that was, but it did get me a lot of experience. It gave me some financial security as well. So I would say I have nothing more to prove than my ability and willingness to help others. So I can take quite a high principled stance there, but I think that's worth probing much deeper. And I can look at my own values and what drives my motivation. And some elements of that are that sort of public spirit, the idea that it can make the world better, or raise standards of living, or security and stability, which I strive to do using my leadership skills. There's also some sense of what made me successful as a professional, reflected my values, was that I had a high level of motivation to take some risk, expose myself and be vulnerable in front of others in a leadership role. And doing that in a different arena serves the same purpose. I like to feel that I'm doing something important. I don't shy away from putting myself in a little bit in the spotlight and taking a little bit of risk. There's some elements of that which also serves my ego, that I like some recognition. So to some degree, what motivates me is similar to what motivated me in my career, to have a level of ambition, to achieve a certain level of recognition, responsibility. What comes with that is also a bit of vulnerability and risk. So I've taken those motivations, those, say, personal preferences from one arena into another in service of something different. And honestly, it's been a journey since I retired, just to reflect on myself and what it would take for me to launch into something new after 30 years of intensive, complex and somewhat exhausting work. To think, who am I? What do I want? How can I move forward? And a different perspective on who I would serve. And actually, there was more focus on serving myself and my family first, starting at home. If I didn't serve myself in terms of taking care of my health, sleeping well, eating well, getting up to date with my health checks, those sorts of things at the beginning of my retirement, then I would have nothing left to give. It's a bit like the analogy of the when the cabin pressure drops in an aeroplane, the advice is first put the mask on yourself before you can help others. So there was that self-reflection that gave me the capacity, and through that self-reflection and desire to help myself, help my family, friends, okay, well, where does that go next? And that was the community around me, the natural community I had from Deloitte, people whom I could continue to help, even though I wasn't in the Deloitte organization anymore. And I allowed myself some space during that time into which other opportunities could enter. So sort of as I redefined my purpose as someone who wants to give back, then things also found me. I was invited into some of the opportunities that I'm now working hard on. And that was just because I didn't fill my agenda too quickly. And I was able to respond when requested. So it was a meeting of minds when others saw who I was and thought, oh, this might be of interest, or this might be something that Gavin could contribute to. But it was a very different mindset from when I was working intensively and judging opportunities maybe through a different lens.
Could you describe what do you do now for the describable as a philanthropy activities or non-profits? So we met in Rotary Club. Can you describe what we do there, or what you do there actually? How do you help the others, and maybe even something outside Rotary that I don't know of yet?
Okay. The way I look at Rotary is it's another global organization as Deloitte in a sense. So I've left one global organization and found myself in another with global presence and many members, but all volunteers. So it's a different nature. And there are different levels, campaigns or programs to help where help is needed. So one of the big ones has been to help eradicate polio. Not necessarily a significant issue here in the Czech Republic or even in Central Europe, but it's something that people can align to and say, well, the world still experiences these debilitating diseases, and we have this global force and power that can make a difference. And then taking that into more local service projects, we help local charities, some of which have other sponsors as well. So we're working as a part of a team of sponsors. Some of them are at the organizational level, so they run an organization which serves a group of people in need. Others are rather more personal, where there are individuals whose needs come to our attention and we're able to help. The other aspects of the work which I find interesting is that as a club here in the Czech Republic, sometimes we collaborate with a club somewhere else in the world to implement a project somewhere else in the world. So through our members here, we're helping projects in Kenya, in Nepal, in India, partnering with the local clubs. So the local clubs spot the need, which we couldn't spot from here. they reach out, and what we offer, sometimes it's the financial support, but it's also leadership and managerial experience that our members have that can help them put a project together. And often we help them attract finances from elsewhere, maybe elsewhere in the Rotary organization or elsewhere in their local community. So we're bringing more than just money, we're bringing know-how as well. And alongside all of that, one of the mottos is having fun while doing good. And that's something that comes to this idea I referred to earlier of volunteering. So volunteering partly is there is a need which we can help to fulfill, but part of that is we actually enjoy doing it. We enjoy doing it together. It's an interesting community of people, and that's what helps it to be sustainable. So we were able to run a portfolio of projects which is refreshed from time to time. I'm involved with other organizations where it's more of a single purpose organization. And I can see that the lifetime of that organization is somehow finite, either because the need is fulfilled, or because even if the need is not fulfilled, it's just very difficult to sustain effort from volunteers. People can get a bit tired. They think somebody else should step in to help. And you can't go back repeatedly to the same donors all of the time. And you run out of ideas unless you get new people in. So that's certainly true of at least one of the organizations I'm involved with. And there are others where by luck or by maybe just taking that lesson learned, we're able to keep some dynamism and some fluctuation and freshness that the organizations have been going a few years, hopefully will go for many more.
Few years ago, I didn't know that any Rotary exists. Actually, it doesn't have really that good. No, it's not that well known here in Czechia. So when I spoke with my friends that I'm part of it, most of them don't know anything. That okay, what is that? Is it a cult or what is that? Some of them who know, some of them know that. Actually, it's a charitable organization, and some of them, since it's something which seems to connect people who have some resources, not necessarily money, but it could be like the social resources or the knowledge, as you said, that we can help somehow. Sometimes it even leads to conspiracies and everything. So I wanted to use this part of the episode to actually maybe explain what do we do, what is it, what's necessary to become a Rotarian. If you could maybe describe how you became one and how many animals did you have to kill during all the rituals and everything. No, I'm joking now, but anyway, maybe I'm not. Well, so how does one happen to become a Rotarian? What does it mean?
I met a Rotary member as we were forming one of the other non-profits that I'm involved with. And from the discussions as to why we were together, we were brought together by a mutual friend, why we were doing this, came the observation that I was open to adding to, let's say, a portfolio of such activities. So his name's Andreas, said to me, well, I'm a Rotary member. Do you know what Rotary is? And I said, well, I think I have an idea because my parents had been involved in similar organizations when I was younger. And I had joined one of those organizations in the Czech Republic 20 or so years ago. So I had some idea of what that type of organization did. It was Round Table, was that organization. When I returned to the Czech Republic from 6 years in Poland, I was traveling so much that I hadn't renewed my interest. And so being presented with Rotary was almost like starting again, but I had that clue in the back of my mind. To become a member then, it was attending the meetings. Probably it was demonstrating that I had the right type of spirit. And we have another motto, which is service before self. So it's truly trying to live to that standard of serving others is not the pursuit of personal objectives. So although there are many interesting people from various walks of life and businesses, it's not the place you go to do business. And indeed, I can say that those who have come to meetings with some interest, but either explicitly or implicitly were there with that business development or networking thing in mind, they themselves found that maybe it wasn't the right place for them, or in the process of discussion with members, because we do some sort of due diligence on applications, it was realized that their motivations weren't what we were looking for. So I was introduced by a member, and that's how many members come in, but also you can apply openly. So you go to the Rotary International webpage and sort of declare an interest. Depending on how diligent you are, you can go and even find the website of the local club. But what often happens is it gets to a certain level, and someone who is at the, we have a district of Czech and Slovak republics cooperating together. So someone at the district level sees this interest and may recommend to which club that individual who's expressing interest could go. How many people find us is they apply online. That goes to someone in our district, Czech and Slovak republics, and they're in the position to suggest a club to which the individual might approach and attend meetings. And that could be based on language. We're an English-speaking club as the international club. Although we have many Czech members, we're not exclusively expatriate or multinational.
For example, me.
Yeah, indeed. You chose an English-speaking club. There's a more German language club, which is Prague Bohemia, and obviously many which are primarily oriented to the local language. So that suggestion can then be followed up by attending the meetings, and the meetings are regular. We meet on a weekly basis, most clubs. Might be in the evening, might be for lunch, might be in the morning. So again, it's a question of preference. And then it's really attending and participating. So my entry into the club was participating in some of the projects. I was delivering takeaway Indian meals for the India Food Helps project, driving all over Prague to deliver Indian food. I was planting trees with my family as part of the Freedom Trails project, and attending different events. Some are business meetings, some are fun events, to get to know the other members. So that was really my own journey, and others' journeys, including yours, might have been slightly different. To reach ultimately that point, say, am I willing to make this commitment?
Yeah, well, I believe you described it by the motto, doing good, having fun. I mean, that could be the answer for the question, who could be interested in applying, maybe. So probably it's somebody who wants to do both. It's not just one or the other. But yeah, if you wanna do some good and maybe find some paths already stepped and find a community with whom that could be the right mindset, I guess, or something else, or yeah, as you described, like if there's much like different motivation, it probably will not work out, but everybody will find out somehow. So,
right.
Yeah, so I believe it's quite friendly group. Well, we're slowly moving to the finish. I remember your start of one of your answers when I asked you why would one help the others. You started with because it's good to do. So my immediate reaction was, okay, so if I was a psychopath and I didn't understand, okay, why is it good to do? But it's not just about being psychopath, actually. I remember that when I was a child, which means even now, I'm always asking why, and I would like to know, why do you think it's good to do, like in general? Because you described your personal motivation. I believe I understand you, and the listeners as well, I guess. Why do you think it's in general good to do, to help the others?
It's self-fulfilling, or fulfills one's need for a satisfying life or to achieve certain targets. So I would say it's that self-fulfillment is probably the most powerful because it's within us. And we may fulfill our needs in various ways, but I think the human spirit does need something social. We are interactive, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's strangers. That's what the humans have developed to be as social animals, which is why for example, the lockdowns in COVID was so painful for people because it denied, to a large degree, that ability to interact. So that was evidence of this interdependence that we have. So at a deeper level, I think that's the why. And then it can be personalized. For me, it was also to use what I've learned. And I can use what I learned by repeating what I have done or by doing something else. So sharing my leadership skills or my ability to work with people would be another need I had to show what I could do, but also to learn further because I continued to be curious and I wanted to explore how I could be a better leader or better developer of people. So again, I think if I imagine or I transpose that onto people more generally, I think there is something inherent in people that there is some curiosity. You need the space and the time and the energy maybe, but people are inherently curious, and curiosity tends to lead you to interactions with others.
Thank you so much for your honesty and expertise and your time, obviously. We're coming to the last question, which is same for all the guests, or at least similar. I believe every honest or fair service or product, or sometimes even whole organization, should have or could have the goal of not existing if their service or product would finally fulfill the need. So if you imagine, if we take it from point of view of Rotary for now, trying to imagine the point of time where Rotary is not needed because the purpose was fulfilled, which sounds like amazing world. What could every listener, every person in audience do every day, or at least once, or repeat, or what do you recommend everyone to do for Rotary not to have to exist, to help you fulfill it?
A practical thing that we can all do is to ask the question, how can I help? The more people that are asking that question, either to multiple people or it becomes sort of a chain effect, then that will generate answers and collaboration and partnerships and solutions. And who knows, that may actually eradicate some of the things that we're currently identified as needing to be solved.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time and expertise, as I said once already. Thank you, Gavin.
Thanks, Ricky. Pleasure.